So I am Jackie Downing. I'm the Senior Director of Grant Making and Nonprofit Support for the Community Foundation for Greater New Haven. Welcome to the Grantseeker Web Information Webinar. I'll be presenting along with Valerie Knight-DeGanchi, the Program Officer for the Valley Community Foundation, Logan Roddy, the Grants Manager, and Stephanie Chung, Nonprofit Support and Grants Manager for the Community Foundation for Greater New Haven. The goals of this webinar are to familiarize you with the responsive grants process and other grant opportunities at the Community Foundation for Greater New Haven and the Valley Community Foundation for 2025, to help you see if and where your organization and your programs fit into our grant making opportunities. A few housekeeping items. The webinar is scheduled to end at 11:30 and we'll make every effort to end promptly. In the webinar format, you are muted. You're able to type questions in the question and answer box at the bottom of the screen. We will make every attempt to get to answer every question during the webinar, and we'll be stopping at points throughout the webinar to answer questions. If we don't get to all of the questions by 11:30, we'll provide written answers to the remaining questions to everyone who is in attendance. If you have trouble viewing the webinar or with your audio, you can use your phone instead, or your speakers on your computer. The Zoom phone number and meeting ID are in your invitation, and they also appear here. The recording of this webinar will be posted on both foundations' websites in 24 hours. From these websites, you'll be able to click on all of the hyperlinks you see throughout the presentation to access documents and web pages. So this is the Community Foundation's catchment area. The Community Foundation for Greater New Haven was established in 1928, and it's one of the oldest and largest community foundations in the United States, and remains the largest grant maker to nonprofits in its 20-town region in the heart of South Central Connecticut. That region includes the 5 towns served by its partner in philanthropy, the Valley Community Foundation, known as VCF, which was established in 2004. VCF fulfills the mission of the Community Foundation in the Valley's unique 5 cities and towns of Ansonia, Derby, Oxford, Seymour, and Shelton. The 2 foundations work collaboratively to address the needs and seize opportunities for their service areas. Community Foundation for Greater New Haven worked with donors to achieve their charitable goals and with nonprofits to build a stronger community. It convenes the community around important issues. It's the largest grant maker to nonprofits serving Greater New Haven, making over $30 million in grants and distributions each year, including distribution from organization funds. Manages an endowment made up of more than 1,100 individually named funds valued over $690 million. And we provide technical assistance to nonprofit staff and board members and volunteers looking to create a stronger impact in their community. I'm going to pass it over to Logan.
Thank you, Jackie. So all applicants must be tax-exempt organizations under Section 501c3 or any applicable section of the Internal Revenue Code, or have a fiscal sponsor. Applicants must provide services in at least one town of our 20-town region, or one of the 5 Valley towns for a Valley Community Foundation for requests. But your organization can be located outside of our 20-town region. You saw the map on the previous slide, but I'll read the towns out to you. So the towns include Ansonia, Bethany, Brantford, Cheshire, Derby, East Haven, Guilford, Hamden, Madison, Milford, New Haven, North Brantford, North Haven, Orange, Oxford, Seymour, Shelton, Wallingford, West Haven, and Woodbridge. Applicants must comply with all applicable local, state, and federal anti-discrimination laws and advance equity in its practices. Applicants who are previous recipients of a grant within the past 3 years must have submitted all required reports. So we'll talk on a further slide about if you want to check that you're in compliance with all reporting before applying for an application. So many of these have been in place for quite some time, but these are, unless otherwise noted by specific grant or program, these projects also not receive consideration. I'll point to a few that are new this year. So these are organizations that have a fiscal sponsor that is outside the TCF region and do not have a local advisory board or board of directors. LLCs with a nonprofit fiscal sponsor. Nonprofits closely affiliated with a for-profit business that offers similar programs and or shares leadership. So we'll talk on the next slide, if you are an LLC attending today, what resources are available to you at the Community Foundation for Greater New Haven. Then PTSOs, PTOs, PTAs, sports club booster clubs, PK to 12 academic programs are also not considered for funding.
Okay. We do have the Community Foundation for Greater New Haven does have the NHE3, the New Haven Equitable Entrepreneurial Ecosystem. That's the E3, small business grants. These are for-profit businesses only. Nonprofits are not eligible to apply. We will not be talking about those in this webinar today. We are talking to nonprofits today in this webinar. So if you are here as a for-profit business and are interested in the NHE3 small business grants, there is some information on this slide. There's a link at the bottom that will take you to some more information. And you can drop off the webinar at this point because you will not hear anything else that is relevant for you at this point. Okay, now we're going to talk about the grant opportunities that are for both Greater New Haven and Valley-based organizations. Some of the opportunities, some of the grants that we make are for all of the 20 towns of our region together. And those are the ones that we'll talk about at this point. We have nonprofit animal shelters, the consultant support program. We're going to go into each of these in a little more detail. The Community Fund for Women and Girls, the Nonprofit Management Program for Emerging Leaders of Color, and the Basic Needs Fund. All of those are programs for which any organization in Greater New Haven, including the Valley, can come through one door in for an application. In addition, the responsive grant making, the big grant making that we do each year, is also a combined process. The responsive grants are either for general operating support, and that is if you are based in the 20-town region and at least 75% of the population you served lives inside the 20-town region. You can come in for a general operating responsive grant. If you are based outside the region, you serve statewide or regions outside us as well, and less than 75% of your population lives in our 20 towns, then you must come in for program support. And that program is the program that you do in Greater New Haven. So it's not one distinct area of service, but it's the geography. What do you do in Greater New Haven in the 20 towns? We'll talk more about that as we move forward in the slides. So don't ask questions about these two because we're going to get a lot more into the responsive and the other processes, but these are the processes that are combined for both organizations. And Valerie, this is a point where I have stopping for questions. So do we have any questions?
We do, Jackie, and I'm going to read them so that everybody can hear what is being asked. The first question is, if we are awarded a 3-year grant, what is the reporting schedule?
Reports are due once a year. It's called a requirement in your Blackbaud portal. So you will get a link when you apply. You create an account in the Blackbaud portal. When you're awarded the grant, you will get a link to your requirement, which is your report, and it's a once-a-year report.
Thank you. Next question. Can we apply for a small grant if our organization, hang on just a second, and my screen slipped. If our organization is not physically located in your footprint, but the project intends to do work in that region?
Yes, you can apply for a small grant in that case, as long as you have already started establishing relationships. If you are located elsewhere and have not made any partnerships in New Haven, not made any foray into this community, your application would not be very competitive in small grants. You need to have partners that are excited about you coming into Greater New Haven, understand what the landscape is here, who else is working in the space that you're working in. But yes, you are eligible to come in. Any more? Oh boy, we have Valerie frozen. So I think I'm going to go on to the next slide. And this is about responsive grant making. So this is the largest grant making that we do each year. Responsive grants are for 1, 2, or 3 years. We are experiencing site-wide here. Our internet is going out. In fact, our IT guy is on site today. So he is working with us to resolve this, but I apologize. It's beyond our control. And if it happens again, we'll pop back in as soon as we can. So we appreciate you staying with us. We were talking about responsive grant making. So responsive grants are for 1, 2, or 3 years. You choose how many years you'd like to apply for. There may be different reasons why if you're in the midst of a transition, you may want a 1-year grant because you'll know better what years 2 and 3 look like next year. So you could apply with a stronger application in the future. If you've just launched a strategic plan and you've got a pathway and you know what you're going to do for the next 3 years, that would be a 3-year application. The maximum request is $50,000 per year. So you can ask for $50,000 each of 3 years. Organizations can apply for either a TCF, the New Haven small grant, or a responsive, but not both. You can only come in for one. And Valley organizations do have the opportunity to apply for needs and opportunities, which is their small grant process, and a responsive. So Logan, we have you back.
Yes. So Jackie covered a lot of that, but so there's 2 grant types for responsive. So the first is general operating support. So this is flexible funding that a nonprofit organization can use to further its mission rather than for a specific purpose or project. So this could be used for ongoing or new programmings and services, as well as administration and infrastructure. This is our largest, most competitive request. So we ask of you to make a stronger request just to identify other funders and commitments, identify partnerships with other organizations where it makes sense to accomplish what will address the need you are meeting in the community, and to have a long-term funding strategy. How will you sustain this programming when the funding ends? As we mentioned, applicants have to have a current operating budget of $100,000 or more. Applicants also must have active programming of at least 3 years, which that's an update from last year, which was 2 years. If you are an organization that you cannot apply if your organization has a current GOS that extends beyond 2025. So we can go to the next one, the next type. Yeah, so this is for responsive grant type number 2. This is for program support for statewide and multi-region organizations. So this is for new or existing specific segments of organizations' work that services 1 or more towns in the Community Foundation's region. So when you click on this link, there's a question on the eligibility quiz that asks about this percentage. So really make sure you have that percentage kind of locked in. That way you're completing the correct application. You can go to the next slide. So this application is open now. It is due on March 12th at 5 p.m. Another part of this process, is it's a 2-pronged process, is to have to create, update, and complete your organization's Give Grade profile by March 19th. So if you submit an application on March 12th and your Give Grade profile is not complete, we will be emailing you for that information, because again, it is a 2-pronged process. So really make sure you not only do you have your application, but you also have your Give Grader profile up to date and complete. And on the application and on the website, there's a Give Grader checklist to kind of make sure you're in compliance with everything. And our colleague Stephanie Chung, who's on our call today, can answer any questions because she is the Give Grader guru. So, and then the timeline after March 19th is the review time. So you'll be assigned a staff person who will work with you. They'll reach out to you for questions about your organization and your application. They may, they will schedule a one-on-one, or they may want to schedule a site visit with you. And then all recommendations get presented to the board in July. So you will be notified shortly after the July board meeting of a funding decision.
Thank you, Logan. And we were going to stop for questions at this point. So I do have the question and answers open. I see a question. If I have a food bank and a shelter, can both apply? Any organization can only make one application. So you can apply for both programs, the food bank and the shelter as one organization, or you can concentrate on one or the other. Responsive grants, I remind you, the responsive grants for those that are in this area are general operating support. So you don't have to tell us specifically what you're going to do with the money. We just want to know that you're going to fulfill your mission. You may want to talk about the whole body of work that you do in your application so that we can take in all of the impact that you have in the community. I'm going to go to responsive grants are very competitive. Can you elaborate? How much funding requests you get in versus how much you give? Last year, our funding requests were just over $5 million, and we gave 2.2 million. So we had to make some very hard choices. The choices that we made, first and foremost, concentrated on the impact in Greater New Haven. So if you are a statewide or a national organization, or you happen to have a website where Greater New Haven people could drop into your website, your application is probably not going to be very competitive in this process, because we want to see that there are people living and working in New Haven that are employed by your Greater New Haven, that are employed by your organization, or that you have significant impact in this community, not sort of a passive impact. If you are thinking about starting a program in New Haven, but you are working elsewhere, but you want to move that program into New Haven, you'll already have to have partners in place. You have to have relationships and understand the climate of what New Haven is like before you request funding. In terms of give greater profile and inputting direct deposit information, is that the potential for DAFs, or is in the chance we are awarded for us to receive the grant award? So when you do the give greater profile, it has nothing to do with the funds you will get either from the grant award or from potential donor advisors. The give greater profile contains information that is integral to our application process. Things like mission, your accomplishments, the individual programs that you do. We don't ask those things on the responsive application. It is on the give greater profile. Whether or not you use the give greater profile as a fundraising tool is up to you. You don't have to make yourself donatable on give greater, but you do have to have a published profile that shows all of the information about you so that our reviewers can see that. It always helps if you are donatable, because when a donor calls us and says, please tell me who's doing great work in the environment, we say, go to Give Greater, search on environment, and you'll see all those organizations, and then they can make an informed choice about their giving. So it really has nothing to do with potential for DAF or which are donor advised funds, or where the money will come from the grant. It is part of our review process. Is there a minimum population percentage that needs to be located in Greater New Haven for regional profits to apply? Is there a minimum? Well, no, I can't give you a minimum percentage, because it's an algorithm and it's not a scientific algorithm. It is an algorithm of percentage and number. If 5% of your population is 75 people that live in Greater New Haven, chances are the application is not going to be competitive. But if 5% of your population is 2,000 people who live in New Haven, that application might be competitive in the responsive process. In regards to the 3-year requirement, is it 3 years of service already completed or 3 years of planned service? It is 3 years of service already done. You need to be able to give us numbers of people and the impact on those people from 3 years ago. Very grateful it's being recorded. How soon it will be available? We normally say 24 hours, but because of the glitches in our network shutting down, we're going to have to do some editing. So I would say today is Wednesday. I would say probably by Monday, if not earlier, but I would say by Monday we'll be able to do the editing of the 3 or more files that we'll end up with. If a nonprofit is newly established and has a fiscal sponsor, will that sponsor be required to have 3 years? If a nonprofit is newly established, it can't apply for responsive. You can apply for small grants. So whether or not you come in with a fiscal sponsor, the age of the fiscal sponsor makes no difference. It's the organization that is the applicant, and the applicant is the new organization, which means if it's new, you can't come in for responsive. So we talked about what is active programming. Active programming is being able to report on outcomes, impact, and numbers of people that you served 3 years ago. Ratio for funding is much better than the NIH. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, and applications continue to come in. So we are going to move forward, and we're going to
Animal shelter grants.
Animal
Thank you,
shelters.
Jackie. Thank you, thank you. So in addition to the responsive grants that both Jackie and Logan have been talking about, there are other grants that both TCF and VCF share in common, and one of those is the Animal Shelter Grant Program. Any independent nonprofit that gives shelter to animals in the 20-town region can apply at any time and can expect an answer within 8 weeks. The applications are up on our website, and the grants are up to $10,000. Next slide, please. In addition, this year we are opening up our nonprofit management cohort for emerging leaders of color. These are for folks that are currently in leadership positions, in Greater New Haven and Valley nonprofits, such as a program director, development director, etc. There will be 10 people chosen for this cohort. What we're looking for is a demonstrated commitment to Greater New Haven and/or the Valley. And what we're providing is professional development and leadership pipeline so that you'll be able to make some connections through your participation in the cohort. Application will be focused on the qualities and aspirations of the leader of color, not the organization's goals itself. So it's really all about the person. It is a 2-year program, which includes a 9-month course with the University of Connecticut and a 2nd year of leading an organizational assessment and cohort meetings. Applications will be open as of April 7th, as you see on the slide, and the deadline to apply is June 6th. Now I'm going to turn the program over to my colleague, Stephanie Chung, to talk to us more about the Consultant Support Program, which we had a question about earlier. Stephanie.
Yes, we did. So the Consultant Support Program is available to nonprofit organizations serving the Community Foundation's 20-town region within Greater New Haven or the Valley. Requests to the Consultant Support Program can be for a fully funded project not to exceed a budget of $2,000, or it could be used to supplement other funds as part of a larger project with a total budget not to exceed $5,000. This is real funding through the Consultant Support Program is for a discrete project. And the funding should not be used as part of a larger engagement with the consultant. So for example, we will not pay the first $1,000 towards a project that has a total budget of $10,000 because that's above and beyond the budget criteria. It will cover the consultant time and or out-of-pocket expenses that are incurred for the project. We do have a list of consultants that we can make available to any organizations that are looking to apply for consultant support. The list is a group of consultants that the foundation has history with that are knowledgeable and know about the Consultant Support Program. However, you can certainly engage your own consultant. You do not have to go with a consultant on the Community Foundation's list. Organizations are able to apply and receive funding from this program one time in a fiscal year. So you can apply for consultant support programming to have a project supported through this program once in 2025. You're not able to apply for multiple projects that are separate with different consultants. And awards through the consultant support program will not impact your eligibility for any other grant program, whether that's small grants, animal shelters, or responsive. It is separate. At this time, I'm going to stop so that we could get through some of the questions. I'm going to turn it over to you, Jackie.
Okay, thanks, Stephanie. So question about government organizations that are not 501c3s eligible. It's technically, yes, eligible, but we would not make a general operating support grant to a government, to a municipality. Therefore, you would not be eligible for the responsive process. And a municipality is going to be over $2 million in its operating budget. Therefore, you would not be eligible for a small grant. So although technically a government organization might be eligible for some grant programs, you would not be eligible for either small grants or responsive. Is there a way to have our Give Greater profile available to you for potential donors? Absolutely. Anyone can go to givegreater.org at any time, register, complete the profile. It takes about 6 to 8 hours to complete a full profile. And Stephanie will talk a lot more about that later. And she is the guru who will be able to hold you through the process. And once you put yourself on that site, then you are always there to be able to be seen by any potential donor. And any organization of any size can take advantage of Give Greater at any time. We're an emergency shelter for humans, but we're one of the only pet-friendly shelters for humans and their fur animal in the state. Does this fall under the definition of animal shelter? I do believe if you give shelter to animals and you are not part of a municipality, then there would be you would be eligible. But you'll see on the last slide, Luis Rodriguez is the person in charge of the animal shelter program, and he'll be able to answer that specific question for you. The slides will not be sent out, but the recording will be posted, so you will have all of that. You clarify the difference between the number of people served versus 75% living in.
I apologize, everyone. As has been previously shared, we are experiencing some technical difficulties with our network. So while we wait for Jackie to join us again, I am going to go ahead and try to answer as many of these questions as I can. And I invite Logan and Valerie into the conversation and answering some of the questions, especially because I think your expertise are valuable here. So to further answer the question, can you clarify the difference between the number of people served versus 75% of the population living in Greater New Haven? Are they two completely different metrics, and what does the foundation hope to understand from each of these metrics? So as Jackie mentioned earlier, when we look at, if you're a statewide organization, we're really honing in on the number of people that you're working with, that you're impacting within our region. And so it isn't an exact science or algorithm. So for example, your percentage of the number of people served in our region is a percentage of the total population that you serve. And the percentage is going to vary as far as what the number of individuals are based on the total number of people that you serve. So for example, I'm going to keep these numbers small for my quick, easy math, but if you're serving 100 people in the state of Connecticut and 50% of them are within our region, then that means 50 people are coming from our service area. If you're serving 100 people and 25% are coming from our region, then 25 people are coming from Greater New Haven. which means that 75 people are outside of our service area. And so the math looks different for each organization depending on what your total served is. I hope that answers your question, but I'm going to pass it over to Logan if you have anything to add to that.
Yeah, I mean, I'll also say, you know, we're always available to sit down with you and talk to you about that. We acknowledge, you know, for us, that's how we kind of evaluate things. It's based on the 20 town region, and that's what we're looking at. We acknowledge organizations do not sometimes calculate data like that. So we understand that sometimes it can be difficult for organizations to produce those numbers. So again, if you're looking at the application and you want to talk about it, we're always available to you. There's also a section on the application, or most applications, that ask, if you don't calculate data this way, can you explain why, or can you provide further context? So there's always opportunity to explain more and to kind of get more details. But usually if you reach out and you give us a rough idea, we can usually point you in the right direction. It's usually pretty obvious. I know sometimes it can be a little trickier depending on the way you calculate and the way your organization operates. But again, there's opportunity for, I'm getting an update from Jackie, sorry. There's opportunity to explain like numbers, you know, your numbers.
And I will just jump in and share at this point that there are also opportunities for organizations that serve both Greater New Haven and the Valley, right? So that I'm going to take that just even a step further, that, you know, when we're calculating those numbers, we're looking at the numbers served all over the place, right? In both Greater New Haven and the Valley. Welcome back, Jackie.
Jackie gets the webinar back up and gets us back to where we were. I'm going to continue to go through some of the questions just to give Jackie a moment to kind of settle in and reacquaint herself. So define operating support and program support. So operating support is the overall operation of your organization, your general operating. It is everything and anything you do, both outside your organization in the community and internally within your organization. It is the overall operations of your organization, including all of your expenses. Program support is for a specific program, right? So you're a large youth serving organization. You do a number of programs throughout the year for young people, but you're coming to the foundation to apply for support for your after school program. You're not looking for support for your summer program. You're not looking for support for any tutoring or leadership development you do. It's specifically for your after school program. Another question we have, can you apply for more than one grant through the foundation? That's a great question. So the answer is yes, but it depends, right? So that doesn't really answer your question, but so you can apply for a basic needs grant and a responsive grant. You can apply for a small grant and an animal shelter grant. You cannot apply for a responsive grant and a small grant. It's one or the other. And some of this is also teased out on our website as well. Can we apply for a basic needs fund grant if we currently have a responsive general operating support grant? I believe the answer to that is yes, but I'm going to lean on Logan for confirmation.
Sorry, I was trying to get the webinar up. What was
I've got the share up, Logan.
Okay, thank you. What was that question again, Stephanie? I apologize.
No worries. Can an organization apply for a basic needs grant if they currently have a responsive general operating support grant? And I believe the answer to that question is yes.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So we're going to take one more question and then we're going to get back into the webinar. If you're affiliated with another organization interested in applying, but have external interests, are you still eligible to apply? I'm not quite sure I understand that question. So I'm not, and it doesn't look like some of my colleagues do as well. I'm not going to answer that question. Anonymous attendee, if you wouldn't mind further clarifying and elaborating on that question, I would appreciate it. But also, all four of us are available after today's webinar. Feel free to connect with one of us. You could go onto our website so that you could help to identify the best and most appropriate staff person as it relates to our individual grant processes. At this time, I'm going to hand it back over to Jackie so that we could get started.
Okay, thanks, Steph. And I just want to go back to you had a really good explanation of general operating support and program. I just want to clarify for responsive. General operating support is, as Stephanie said, everything that you do. And it could be, you could pay the utility bills, or you could buy the toilet paper, or you could pay the program staff, or you could bring in a consultant, or you could buy a computer. That general operating support is anything you need to fulfill your mission. In terms of the responsive process, the program grant that we're looking for is not a program, a specific program like you do 5 different programs and here's one. We're looking for what you do as a body of work in Greater New Haven. That's the difference from a regular program application. I also see questions. Can I assume that you got to, is there a deadline for consultant support? Did you do all of those? Because I see that live still here. There is no deadline. It's a rolling process. Thank you to the anonymous attendee. I'm trying. Restate the amount of grants that one organization can apply for. The only prohibition is small grants and responsive. You must pick one. You can either apply for small grants or you can apply for responsive. You cannot apply for both. If you get denied a responsive grant, you may then not apply for a small grant later in the year, or prohibited from applying later in the year. So you have to choose which grant process you're going to come into. Almost all the other processes, I think all the other processes, you can come in for on top of whatever else you've come in for. Responsive grant for program support for statewide. I want to clarify 25% of the population served by the organization must live outside. %25 or more must live outside the Greater New Haven area. Am I saying that backwards? 75% of your organization's population served must live in Greater New Haven to apply for general operating support. If not, you must apply for program. Let's go on with the slides. We'll come back to the questions, and we're going to go on to Valerie. Is that where we are? Nope, Greater New Haven based programs. I'm sorry. Slide. So these programs are only for Greater New Haven. Valley organizations are not eligible to apply for these particular programs. We'll talk about what is equivalent for Valley organizations. So we have the small grants program. We're going to talk more about those in the slides coming forward. We have a sponsorship program that, again, on top of everything else, you can come in for a sponsorship if you're doing a one-day in-person or virtual event, a fundraising event, not a program, or a neighborhood or community event. We have the Quinnipiac River Fund, which does the protection and awareness of the Quinnipiac River watershed. That deadline is coming up very quickly, January 27th. And the Neighborhood Leadership Program, it will launch again in Q4. We have a cohort that is just starting. This is the one program where individuals who are in New Haven, East Haven, Hampden, West Haven can apply for leadership training and seed money to start their project. Logan, I'm going to pass it over to you for small grants.
All right, thank you, Jackie. So the small grants process, this is available to organizations with annual operating budgets less than 2 million. That's a change from last year, which was 1.5 million. This is a huge change for this year. So if you're an organization with an operating budget less than 40K, you can apply for 5,000 with an opportunity for capacity building support from the foundation. If you're an organization with an operating budget of over 40K, you can apply for up to 15K per year. Now, again, much like responsive with those percentages, this is a question on the eligibility quiz. So really make sure you have that number kind of locked in, because depending how you answer it, that's going to direct you to the correct application that you should be filling out. Organizations can only apply every other year. So if you were a 2024 grantee, you have to wait until 2026 to apply again. There's 3 application types, which we'll talk more about in the next slide, but there's program, capacity building, and then we've talked pretty extensively about general operating support. There's 2 application rounds. The first deadline is March 17th. And then after that time, it will close, and then we'll reopen on August 1st. It's an 8 to 10 week turnaround. Applications are reviewed first come, first served. We try to really honor that 8 to 10 week turnaround, and we're pretty responsive if we can't, or we'll give you an update on kind of where your application is. This application is not online. You have to contact me directly and kind of give a little bit of background, kind of what you're looking for, your organization name, and I will provide you an application, the appropriate application link. So there's 3 application types, as mentioned. So the first is capacity building. So this is for short-term financial assistance to build the infrastructure of an organization for long-term success. This also can include small capital requests. Some other things it can include is board development, strategic planning, evaluation and capital expenditures, including equipment, building renovations, or relocation. Funding staff is not capacity building. That is considered general operating support. So just be mindful of that. Program support, so that's grants made for specific new or existing programs. And we've talked pretty extensively about general operating support, but again, it's flexible funding to further the general mission and work of an organization rather than a specific purpose or program.
Oh, no.
Jackie backs up, but honestly, I think I'm still in. Oh no, I'm not. See, I'm worried. I can maybe share the screen because it's saying recording. Maybe we should just keep going. Is that?
Yeah, we can keep going if you like. I think
I'm game. I think we should keep going.
All right? It's
Okay.
live television, folks. We're just figuring it out as we go along. So what's the first? How do I start slide? That way we're kind of.
I'm so sorry, everyone. Thank you so much for bearing with us.
We are so grateful on
Yeah.
so many different levels, and sending all good thoughts and prayers to Jackie for all of the challenges. Thank you.
Yeah, the problem is I'm also kicked off, so I might not be able to do this. Like, yeah, see, it's not responding. So I think I'm going to be able to not do this as well.
Okay. Well, why don't we get through some of the questions?
Great.
So back to the questions. Okay, I'm going to go all the way up to the top because we did kind of skip around a bit. Okay. For an event as a New Haven organization that we desire to deliver outside of New Haven. Okay, I believe I understand your question, Jasmine. If you're going to be applying for an event sponsorship grant, the event will need to take place within the Community Foundation's 20-town region. Rarely do we do event sponsorships for an event that's outside of our region. If we were to consider funding an event that's outside of our region, there would have to be a considerable number of individuals from our region that are going to be attending that event and impacted by the event. So the next question we have, this might be for you, Logan. Operation Fuel has received general operating support responsive grants in the past. However, they are located outside of the 20-town region, and less than 70% of our energy assistant grants are outside of the foundation's region. Can we apply for a GOS or a program grant to provide energy assistance restricted to the cities and towns served by the foundation?
Yeah, let me look at that after, because I know Operation Fuel has received that funding before, and I believe a lot of the, I think in the past, it's been a joint request of the foundation and the Valley with responsive. And Valley shaking her head, agreeing with me. So let me look at that when I get offline. I could reach back out to you and kind of provide the best guidance for which you should apply for.
Okay. If my organization is eligible for multiple grant opportunities, can we apply to both? So we did answer this question before. Your organization can apply for all of the grants that it is eligible for. Your organizations are not able to apply for responsive and a small grant. You do have to pick one. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to turn it back over to Logan to finish up with small grants, and we'll get back to the questions in a little bit.
So I was all set. I was done. So I think we're on to sponsorships now.
Okay, thank you, Logan. So that's me. Event sponsorships are for Greater New Haven-based organizations. They are one-day fundraising events. It could be virtual, in-person events, or one-day neighborhood events with the intention to increase community engagement. Applicants can apply for up to $2,000 per event or $2,000 per organization per year. So an organization can come in for multiple events as long as the total does not go over 2,000. I do want to mention, if you're planning on coming in for multiple events, it's best to submit the individual applications at the same time so the event sponsorships committee can look at them in its entirety, as opposed to submitting a request and then waiting a couple months and submitting another. So that would definitely be, that's my advice, is if you know you're going to apply for multiple events, as long as it doesn't exceed the $2,000, submit those requests all at once. Sponsorships support the cost of, again, of those one-day fundraising events, or neighborhood events with the intention to support community engagement and neighborhood involvement. It is a 4-week turnaround. We ask that you apply 60 days in advance of your event to make sure that we're able to review it and get an answer, a response to you within that time period. So we do have another moment where we can stop for questions. I'm going to hand it over to Logan, who will read the questions at this time.
All right, thank you, Steph. Trying to think where we left off. Can you repeat the requirements for the Consultant Support Program? I think we did that one. Also, can you explain indirect versus direct serving of people in New Haven on the grant application? Jackie, if you could explain the difference between indirect or direct.
So if you're an organization that provides services, let's say for you do your early care and education, you provide services and you have 50 kids in your school, in your daycare, in your care, in your center. You are also serving their parents. So if they are working parents and you're providing a place so that those parents can know that their child is cared for and is being educated and they can go to work, then you're indirectly serving the parents. If you have a youth service program and you are working with kids who are having some challenges, and you are indirectly then providing support to the family for the family unit, you can count the family, but the direct service is for the person you are serving within your organization.
So for the sponsorships, if requesting sponsorship for multiple events, did you say they should be part of the same application, or should they be separate applications submitted at the same time? So Steph, that's a question for you.
That's a great question. If you're going to be applying for multiple events, you can certainly use the same application. And using that application, you want to make sure that when you're completing the questions that you're providing clarity around how you describe each of the individual events, and what the request is for the individual events. you can also submit 2 separate applications. That would be okay as well. We really are here to support all of our nonprofit partners and to support the community. And so we have some flexibility here in how we will receive the request, and really want to make sure that we're supporting you all.
Another sponsorship question. So, hi, does it make sense to apply for a sponsorship for a November event at this time, only because I understand process is competitive, or best to wait 60 days out? Thank you.
I would apply sooner than later. The event sponsorship, we close the event sponsorship process once we've exhausted all available resources. Every year, we're closing this grant process earlier and earlier because we are exhausting all available resources. So the guidance about applying 60 days in advance is kind of general. You can apply 180 days in advance. You can apply now. Again, we close the process when we've exhausted all resources, and I would hate for folks to wait and then the process is closed. So the sooner the better.
Okay, this was a clarification before. Admittedly, I'm still a tad confused by it, but we'll try our best here. So if you're planning to apply on behalf of your organization, but are interested personally, can you still apply if your name is on both applications? Hope this clears things up. We do not give grants to individuals. If that's kind of what you're asking, if you're have a position at the organization, you are the contact for that grant, your name should be on the organization, or your name should be on the application. So I hope that clears that up. I guess I'm still a tad confused by that, but individuals cannot apply for grants. Going back to the consultant support program, how much are those grants? Thank you.
Those grants are up to about $2,000. For some diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging work, we can go up to $2,500. But the max on those is between $2,000 and $2,500.
Is there a grant writer that can help with writing a grant with an organization? So we don't supply grant writers, but we do have workshops that Jackie or Stephanie can kind of talk a little bit more about that can help you with your grant writing.
We'll talk about the workshops that we're going to do related specifically to the responsive process and to grant writing, but there is the New England Nonprofit Consultant Directory, which is neconsultant.org. And if you search there for grant writers, you can see who works in Connecticut and does grant writing. It's a really good list of nonprofit consultants, and they can help.
Sponsorship event. I'm sorry, were you
Go ahead.
Okay. Can you confirm that sponsorship events must be one day, meaning a 3-week online fundraising auction event would not qualify? Stephanie, that would be for you.
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that, Logan?
Sure, yeah. Can you confirm that sponsorship events must be one day, meaning a 3-week online fundraising auction event would not qualify?
No, event sponsorships are one day. It takes place within 24 hours.
Should I keep going, or should we keep going?
Okay. No, let's go on so we can talk about the Valley opportunities. And Valerie, we're going to turn it over to you.
Thanks, Jackie, and thank you all Valley folks for hanging in there. It takes a little while to get to us, as you know, but we're here, and I'm going to fly through them as I possibly can to leave time for questions. So we have 3 specific categories for competitive grant opportunities that we fund at the Valley Community Foundation: community grants, sponsorships, and needs and opportunities. Next slide, please. Our community grants are providing opportunities for access to support for small grassroots, mostly volunteer and neighborhood groups, typically those that have 2 or less full-time equivalent staff members, usually volunteer folks. Some examples of prior support include, but are not limited to, funds for neighborhood cleanups, community gardens, elderly and parent activities, and youth engagement projects. The application is now up on our website. As you see, the deadline is March 7th. You can apply for up to $2,500, and we make awards in May. For those of you who have gotten community grants from us in the past, we have really revamped our community grant application this year to be much more inclusive and easier to apply to. We welcome your thoughts about that process as well. And we also want you to show your expenses and revenue, if any, for any grant that you are applying for as part of the community grants process. We have a whole new budget sheet, thanks to Jackie, that we think will help you to focus your attention on what your specific budgetary needs are for the project. Next slide, please. Sponsorships, as Stephanie said, our process mirrors TCF's. It is for one-day events. However, I will add that there are some exceptions that we do. For instance, there are speaker series that we may sponsor. There may be a longer period of time for a specific event that is for an organization. So feel free to contact me offline to find out what those parameters might be. Again, these are available to organizations based in the Valley, in Sonia, Derby, Oxford, Seymour, and or Shelton, or whose majority of services are performed in those towns. They are required to be 501c3 and must have a fiscal sponsor. Might I just share a quick thing about community grants, and that is you do not need to be a 501c3 or require a fiscal sponsor. You just need to have a checking account in order to apply for a community grant. So there's a little bit of a difference. Sponsorships will require 501c3 up to $2,500. And as Stephanie said, we too have had our challenges with having to close our sponsorship program, much earlier than we have in the past. If you have an event that you know that you are having later on in the year, we strongly encourage you to apply now, sooner rather than later. And please adhere to the 60-day or more out that you are going to apply to, specifically because if we are providing you with a sponsorship, we want to be able to support you with whatever artwork or things that you might need for a program guide. And in order to do that, we need to have something within at least 60 days or more to share with you for your event. So that's why we're requiring that. Next slide, please. Our needs and opportunities grants are, again, Valley-based organizations, same group of 5, innovative and ongoing programs and emergency needs, 501c3 up to 10,000. The difference this year, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone on this call, please note that we have 2 cycles of needs and opportunities this year, January until now until March 31st, and then we will reopen the process again after August 1st. So again, if you have a need or an opportunity and you are working in the Valley, please make sure that you get your application in sooner rather than later. The one thing that is different between our process and the Community Foundation Small Grants process is if you have a responsive grant with us and you have an emergency come up, your roof blows off, your boiler breaks, whatever the case is, please make sure that you reach out to us, because we understand that that is over and above what we would consider to be your general operating support needs. And we may consider you, can't say for sure, but we may consider you for a needs and opportunities grant. So the information is up on our website. Feel free to contact me again offline if there are concerns or questions that you have. And I believe that Logan may be stopping for questions if we have a minute or two, or if not, we'll continue to move on.
Yes. So is a statewide organization eligible to apply for the consultant support program?
A statewide organization is eligible to apply as long as the project that you're applying for is taking place within our region or has a direct impact within our region.
I believe CFG&H has offered responsive capital grants. I don't see any capital grants being offered at this time. Is that correct? That is correct. We did do capital grants, I want to say, what, 2 years ago? And then we haven't done it since. So that is correct. We do not offer capital grants. Will the NHE3 grant be available this year? Yes, it will. But again, this is not the webinar for that. But there's information on our website to reach out to NHE3. Looking through the grant application for responsive grants, the demographic questions of the people we serve is very onerous and in-depth on the nonprofits. Oftentimes, organizations have to guess on the number, even do our best to make it up. Can you explain why this data is required, especially for statewide organizations? I mean, I'll just answer simply and then maybe have Jackie kind of provide more detail. I mean, as I said before, we understand sometimes organizations don't capture data that way, but at the end of the we're the Community Foundation for Greater New Haven. We serve a 20-town region in Greater New Haven. So we need, bottom line is we need to understand your presence in Greater New Haven to make you attractive for funding, because that's the region we serve and we need to hold to that. But Jackie, if you have any sort of other kind of context or any sort of kind of guidance you can provide organizations that are struggling to kind of provide this numbers.
Yes, thank you, Logan. Thank you, Logan. Yeah, we don't want it to be onerous. You should be tracking how many people you're serving in some way. You should be at least be able to make educated guesses as to how many people you serve, and that's okay. Just tell us in the box where it talks about the demographics that you don't have actual numbers, that you're doing best to do an educated guess as to what your population is. We're responsible to our donors. For 96 years, people have giving to the Community Foundation for Greater New Haven for service to Greater New Haven. And we hope that for 96 years more or more than that, more donors will give. So if we can show to our current donors, our past donors, and our potential donors that we are having impact through your good work in the community, then it helps us tell our story about why it's important to put more funding into the Community Foundation to do grant opportunities for organizations that need the support. So those kind of demographic information for us is critical so that we can tell our story by telling your story.
Can we as organizations search and prospect funders via Give Lively? I'm not familiar with that software, but Jackie, I don't know if you are.
I'm not sure how that relates to grant making. It's not related to grant making. So if you want to talk about that offline, you can call myself or you can call Allison Abramson at the foundation. We can talk more about that.
Are there any tips on how we can talk about our impact when we are a statewide organization and have a large portion of our clients are in New Haven County? I mean, we're kind
have
of
the numbers.
Yes.
Do have the numbers available so that you know, and the percentage of your business so that we know what your impact is in Greater New Haven, and talk about the outcomes. Talk about what's happening. Talk about the changes in behavior and condition of the people or the families or the neighborhoods that you serve here in New Haven so we can understand what your real impact is.
Is there a way to get a copy of the Give Greater profile questions in total before filling out the online profile? Sorry. I think we have an upcoming slide on that. I know there's a Give Greater checklist that's available on our website, but Steph, if you want to kind of provide more context with that.
Yeah, absolutely. So after you register for a Give Greater profile and you're building it out, you are able to print up a PDF, and the PDF will include the layout of the Give Greater profile with all the individual questions, and then you could go in and complete those fields.
When applying for you want to go on?
Yeah, let's go on. Let's go on.
Okay.
Because we're going to be on slide 25 and we have 33 to get to. I want to make sure we do get to all the slides with enough time to be able to talk about them. I will go quickly through this one. So this is what to think about before you apply. So if you have not already done your research, if you have not talked to other organizations doing similar work and understand what the landscape is in Greater New Haven about the services that you are planning to provide, you should check out websites, look at Give Greater, see who else is doing this work. Look at the Community Wellness Report, look at the Valley Indicators Report, and make sure you've done all of that research first. Then talk about structuring your program. think about what you're going to do and how you're going to do it, how you're going to measure your success, how you're going to define your goals, your outcomes, create a preliminary budget, and then how you're going to actually implement it. Develop your fundraising strategy. We are not going to be the sole funder or the perpetual source of funding for any program or project. So think about the sustainability. Once our funds are gone, what happens? Once you've done all of that homework, then you're ready to write a request. But if you haven't done that yet, if you just have the seed of an idea, this may not be the right time to apply. So now you have the choice of what's right for you in our 2025 grant making. So think about, now that you've heard about all the processes, use these questions to help you determine what's right for you. Do you need something that has a deadline or rolling? Some have rolling applications. You can come in at any time. What are the eligibility criteria? You're not eligible for everything. So think about where you fit best. Are you statewide? Are you Greater New Haven? Are you just Valley? Where do you fit? And what do you think you should apply for? An organization cannot come into the responsive process for more than one application, nor can it come into small grants for more than one. So if you're an organization that does 5 programs, you can't come in for 5 small grant program applications. You must come in one time to small grants. And if you'd rather come into responsive, you can come into responsive, but you can't come small and responsive in the same year. Think about the level of funding you need. As the grant award size goes up, so does the competition. So apply for what you need. If you think you can achieve your goals with a smaller grant, consider the process that might give you a faster and more favorable answer. What type of funding do you need? Do you need flexible funding, general operating support? Do you need capacity building funding to really focus on your organization? Think about where you need, and then think about when the funding is needed. Along with the application deadlines, there are different turnaround times. So if you're coming into the responsive process and the deadline is in March, you won't get an answer until July. So if you are planning a summer program, you will not get funding for that summer program. You cannot spend the money and then go back and pay, as we said, funding in arrears, funding deficits, or funding previously incurred expenses is not allowed. So if you are doing a summer program, you're going to have to come in for a small grant to get a faster answer. So think about when you need the funding. This is our series of technical assistance for our grant programs. I will tell you that these are actually relevant for any grant you apply for. They can be helpful at anything. In our application, the real meat of the application is tell us what your mission and vision are. And we're doing a workshop on creating your mission and vision statements with Nancy Alexander. She'll really be helping you hone your mission statement so that it not only talks to us in our grant process, but talks to all of your potential donors. The second workshop on Wednesday, February 12th is creating outcomes and outcome measures. The real gist of this application is what outcomes do you intend to achieve and how will you measure them? Kara Strawn from the Community Foundation will be doing this workshop. It is a fabulous workshop that really helps you write a succinct and direct outcome and then understand how you're going to measure that. And then preparing your budget. So if you are a small organization and don't have a good structure for your budget, or you're a statewide multi-region and coming in for that program application, we have a specific way we want to see your full budget for all the work that you do. And then we want you to extrapolate what is the New Haven portion of your budget. We'll talk more about that at that workshop. The link for registration is now open. It's here on this slide, and we hope that you will attend, whether you have been in the responsive process before or not. We hope you'll attend 1, 2, or all 3 of these. Logan, I'm going to pass it back to you.
Yeah, so speaking of technical assistance, so all applications are submitted through our online portal. We cannot accept, paper submissions, email submissions. They all have to be submitted through this portal. There was also a lot of talk on these slides about requirements. If you're awarded a grant, these are also where your requirements are stored. So this is where you would go to requirement after that grant period is over. It's been a long time now, but maybe you're kind of coming back to us after a long period. But if you had a kind of an online account prior to July 2019, that software is no longer in use anymore. So you do need to make an account on this portal to complete an application. If at any time you need, help, whether it be, your password, or if you are a new staff person at an organization and you need someone's old information transferred over to you, you could just reach out to me and I can do any of those for you. For that, for the Blackbaud portal.
So givegrader.org, givegrader.org. GiveGab Bonterra is our technology partner, and they provide the online platform for givegrader.org. Givegrader.org is not the same as thegreatgive.org, both of which are platforms provided by GiveGab Bonterra, but they are separate and distinct from one another. I am available to help organizations create and update a profile on givegrader.org. We can schedule a time to talk over the phone or meet on Microsoft Teams. I'm also available to meet in person. An up-to-date publicly viewable profile must have an expiration date that is set to expire no earlier than March 31st, 2025 for our responsive grant making. As mentioned before, the givegrader.org profile is part of the responsive grant process, and it will need to be updated. The number of required fields has been reduced, but it can still take 6 to 8 hours to complete the givegrader.org profile. So you really want to build in enough time for yourself to complete or update the profile. Be prepared with organizational materials in advance, including but not limited to the current list of board members and 990 tax forms, as well as financials for the 3 most recently completed fiscal years. When you're completing a GiveGrader profile or updating the profile for responsive grant making, we are looking for financial documentation for fiscal years 2022, 2023, and 2024. Now, especially if you're on a calendar year, you may not have your Form 990 for 2024. That's okay. But we are going to be looking for a year-end financial statement for fiscal year 2024. Again, if you have any questions as it relates to the givegrader.org profile, please contact me. I am here to help you, and I'm very flexible in how I'm able to assist, whether that be on the phone or in person. So at this time, we're going to move on to the Great Give. So as I said before, and I'm going to say it again, thegreatgive.org and givegrader.org, separate and distinct. Both are platforms provided to us by our technology partner, GiveGab Bonterra. Online registration for the Great Give 2025 will open on February 3rd. The Great Give is a 36-hour giving event. One of the many benefits of having a year-round publicly viewable profile on givegrader.org is that is the list of organizations that can participate in the Great Give. We generate the initial list from givegrader.org. Now, I want to mention, just because you have a givegrader.org profile does not automatically mean that you're going to be registered and participating in the Great Give. You do need to complete a separate registration form for the Great Give. And my colleague, Allison Aberson, she can answer all of the questions that you have specific to the Great Give. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Valerie, who's going to talk a little bit about grant reporting.
Thanks, Stephanie. And as looking at the time, just bear with us. We will hopefully get through by 11:30, but in case we don't, if you can just stick with us for another couple of minutes as we finish out, I would greatly appreciate it. If you become a grant recipient with VCF and/or TCF, then we will ask you to update us each year on the progress that you are making towards your outcomes through the required reporting. Reporting is done electronically through our Blackbaud grant making portal, and they need to be all up to date in order to submit a grant application to us VCF and TCF. Something new this year, we're very excited. You see it says new with exclamation points. We now have put together a list of frequently asked questions. They are available at that link that we will make sure that we get out to everybody. And we hope that these questions will help you navigate our reporting process. And Logan is going to round us out with the resources, and Jackie will finish us up towards the end. Thank you.
Actually, I'm going to jump in and take care of the resources because this really is the last slide other than the one that says questions. And we will get to the last questions that are in, and we're finishing on time despite all of the hiccups. We appreciate you staying with us. So these are the resources that you can tap into during the grant making process, and we encourage you to do so. You can reach out to me for general questions. I can also help you with budgeting. Please do take those 3 workshops. Logan can also do general questions, technical support for online applications. If you're having trouble getting into the site, he's the man. And small grants as well. Logan, all small grants start with Logan. For outcomes, how to craft them. If you write your outcome and you want to run it by Kara, give her time. Don't send it the day before the deadline. But if you give her some time, she can review the outcomes for you, and she can help you with evaluation. How do you create those outcome measures? If you have questions about reporting, so we use reporting and requirements interchangeably. Blackbaud calls reporting requirements. Hannah Elias and Luis Rodriguez are the ones who help with that. You can just write into one portal, it will get to both of them. So if you write into grantreporting.cfgnh, they will be able to get to you. Stephanie told us so much about the Great Give and about sponsorship. She's the one that manages that. Lewis also manages animal shelters, and all things Valley go through Valerie from the Valley. I'm going to go through the last questions that we have in here, and I know, Stephanie, there are a couple of for you, so I'm going to make sure we have you ready to go.
Yes.
If I wanted to apply for a small grant, general operating, I would request that specific form and not just apply for general operating form. Yes. If you want a small grant, you must contact Logan first. Everyone goes to Logan first because you cannot get a small grant application without talking to Logan. This recording will be available as soon as we can cobble together the little bits and pieces of the recording because of our technical glitches. It will be posted on the website, I would say probably no later than Monday. Stephanie, if you sponsor an event 4 times in a year, can you apply for the grant under 2,000?
As long as the individual events, as long as the request for those 4 separate, distinct individual one-day events does not exceed 2,000, you can apply. But again, the threshold is $2,000.
Okay, and then also for you, if an org serves as the fiscal agent of a neighborhood festival and also has its own fundraiser, would the max of 2,000 be for the organization, or would it be the festival be treated separately?
So the applicant would be the entity, the organization putting on the one-day event. So in this case, the fiscal sponsor can submit their own request for an event sponsorship for their own event. The organization that they are fiscally sponsoring can also submit a separate application for an event sponsorship that they are going to be leading. In both cases, both entities, 2 separate requests, 2 separate events, both can request the maximum of $2,000.
Okay, thank you. Are there grants for health science or cancer research programs for educators or for educators to train students in research? I don't believe we're going to have the cancer research grants this year. We have made multi-year grants in cancer research to 2 different organizations. So the preference funds we have for cancer research would not be available. Is the foundation focusing on any specific priority areas for responsive grant program grants? No, we are focusing on service to our Greater New Haven community. And we are compelled by what is written on the page. You have to tell us your story about what an impact you make, what a difference you make to this community. And that's how we focus our applications. Can an organization apply for a responsive grant this year if they received a continuation grant? Yes. Your continuation grant will be ending during this year. So you can apply this year if you had a continuation grant last year, and no, your report does not have to be in prior to that. When I calculate whether 75% of my beneficiaries are in New Haven, is it cumulative for the past 3 years or in each of the individual years? It is in the past 1 year. If Quinnipiac River Fund could be addressed, we are wondering about the following. What is allowable overhead percentage? You can contact Denise Canning directly, dcanning@cfgnh.org, and Denise will be able to answer. There is I don't believe there is a direct percentage or for any of our grants on what we will allow for indirect or overhead costs. The Great Give, do you have the date early giving starts? Peter, you can go to the website now. The new Great Give site is up and the key dates appear in the nonprofit toolkit, so you can see everything that's there. Our prior grant application that we submitted still on our portals for us to access. Logan?
Yes. When you log on, there's a drop down on like kind of the right-hand side. And the drop down has in progress applications. That's one you're kind of working on and that you've saved. New applications, ones you just started, and then completed applications. The completed application will have your whole history of submitted grants. Or if you're a new hire or you need the history because someone, I don't know, they moved on or they're not doing that role anymore, I can always transfer an account over to another account. So you get the full history.
Thanks, Logan. Stephanie, do event sponsors require a grant report?
No, there is no grant reporting for event sponsorships.
Okay. Is Kara available for help with outcomes and evaluation wording if I'm applying for a grant from another agency? Sure. The Community Foundation for Greater New Haven is always there to help. So yes, the farther away from our deadline, the better, because it does take, we all have a certain bandwidth to get things done. But yes, we'll always be there to support you. And will a sample grant application FAQ be available on the website? No, you have to be able to go, you have to go in because there are so many different applications. We do not post them on the website. You can go ahead and choose the one that you are applying for, go into it, and you'll be able to pull a PDF once you're in there. I think that gets through all of the questions. Oh, so if I want to apply for a small grant, we did. We've gotten through all of the questions that were in, and I know we're just a little bit over. I thank you for staying with us, and thank you for attending the webinar. It's been recorded, and it'll be posted on both foundations' websites. I'm going to say by Monday. The slides will also be available. Be sure to look at the last slide for the resources and contact the people. We are here to support you and help you through this process. We look forward to hearing from you. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you for your patience.